He's pushing for for employment non-discrimination, but says that we can't include transgender people because they don't like us? Because people don't like us?
No, it's the explanation he gave the last time around, which was that basically you have to fight for your rights in little incremental steps. That people are willing to pass a legislation that includes sexual orientation in employment non-discrimination, but they weren't willing to pass it if it included gender identity based on their polling. Therefore, we're not going to put the legislation in front of the Congress to see how the vote would actually go.
Right.
You know, it didn't look like it would pass, and it's better for the community, he says, if we pass it and it protects homosexuals and not protects transgender than if we don't pass anything at all.
Yeah.
Which seems to have some validity on the surface, but the gotcha with activism in general and you know, especially protecting minority groups is that minority groups have power when they band together.
Right.
And when you start cherry-picking groups out of that coalition because they've already got the protection, and that's not to say that they would all go away, but there are those that would.
Right. And when you're dealing with
you start
human
to lose
rights,
your voice.
you can't. When you're dealing with human rights, it's the wrong decision to leave people behind.
Exactly. It's sort of, it goes against the whole premise of non-discrimination to kick out the smallest group. The least powerful group gets booted out.
Because they're the least popular.
It's like, wait a minute, that totally goes against the whole concept behind anti-discrimination, doesn't it? Am I missing something here?
Well, you're right. I mean, in a twisted way, it's showing discrimination from him towards our groups because, you know, well, it's going to be too tough a fight if we include gender identity, so bye. See ya.
Right.
It's just...
And not to leave them out, the HRC, the Human Rights Commission, had a big part to play in that.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So we don't like them either.
Well, they certainly won't get any of my money.
Yeah, so anyway, it was good.
At least until they change their mind.
Right.
It's a sellout, you know.
Well, and as the article says, I mean, we're facing what certainly conservatives would argue is the most liberal Congress in several generations.
Yeah.
If there's a time to try.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's promising that they're going to press an all-inclusive hate crime bill, but it sure would be nice to go all the way with it and get the employment non-discrimination. But we're pretty confident, even if we don't get it at the federal level, we'll see it at the state level this year.
Which is good. We like our state these days.
Connecticut's becoming very friendly.
Yes, which
Yes.
is a good thing because
good
we're
place to
here. So, and
We've already started immigration.
we have.
People are moving back to Connecticut now.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
We just got a member up here from Florida, so it's like and
Which was also in the
We're
news today.
so
We will.
excited about that.
we will be pulling members in from all over the country. So, come on to Connecticut. You know, and that's a good thing for Connecticut.
It's a good thing for
Yeah.
Connecticut.
Yeah. Anyway, you had something about somebody in Australia.
Oh, there was, likewise, I really hadn't read through it entirely, but this is very short. The title is Transsexual Woman Ran Out of Town. It says, this was from an Australian daily newspaper. Transsexual has fled the Sunshine Coast after an alleged vicious attack on a Caloundra Street left her afraid to venture outside. Alice, not her real name, was born male and has identified as a female since she was 5. On Tuesday morning, Alice, 40, said that she and her daughter, 13, set out along Landsborough Parade in Golden Beach to buy groceries to prepare for dinner. Sometime before 5:30, Alice said she passed a small group of women pushing a pram, accompanied by a gentleman who she alleged was abusive to her as she walked by. Alice said she heard what the man said and questioned the man about it. He just started screaming abuse at me, swearing and calling me a tranny fag. Alice said that she had been previously advised to record such attacks. I held up my phone to record what he was saying, and he turned physically abusive. She said the man chased her into a nearby playground where he allegedly threatened anyone who came to her aid. She alleged the man smashed a bottle and hit a man who had tried to protect her. Another car arrived at the scene, and a man holding a baseball bat stepped out of the car and allegedly chased Alice down the street. Alice said she called for help, but those driving by and a family eventually stopped and took Alice to the police station. She said she had lived full-time as a woman since she was 14 and has had medical approval for a sex change operation but cannot afford the surgery. Her best friend and her daughter have spent the past 18 months traveling around Australia. She says once knowledge of her transsexual nature is made public, she is chased from the towns. The Sunshine Coast, she said, hasn't been no different. We're leaving the Sunshine Coast, though, because I'm afraid to walk down the street. I don't want to leave my room. I can't understand why normal people act like this. I harm no one, but I'm always subjected to people's abuse because they don't like me for who I am. Police have charged the man with 1 count of public nuisance and 2 counts of common assault.
Wow. That's scary.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, so Australia maybe isn't the place to go.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, there was an article a couple of weeks ago I saw about transsexuals in Europe and how they were being treated, and the European Union's Human Rights Commission equivalent was pressing to set standards within the EU and at the United Nations to classify it as discrimination.
Wow.
And I know the Vatican recently came out, not on transgender issues specifically, but gay, lesbian issues in particular, and made a statement at the United Nations that they would oppose any such legislation classifying it as discrimination.
Oh, wow, nice.
That's lovely.
The Holy See
Yeah,
speaks.
Yeah, of course. Where is Lily when we need her?
Yeah, how does
Lily would
that
explain
line
to
up
us.
with unconditional love?
Yeah. Lily would, of course. Hi, Lily. If you're out there listening, we miss you and we love you. And if Lily was here, she would explain to us that the Pope's a Nazi anyway. So.
And if Father Carmichael was in the room, he would explain to us that God is everyone's God or no one's God at all.
That's right.
And he's right.
So you guys at the Vatican, listen up.
No, they were rationalizing it. You know, they're not encouraging the abuse or discrimination of any of these people. Just that by putting it into a UN resolution of some kind, it would force every country around the world to follow those rules, and that may not be aligned with that country's state-held belief.
Well, it ought to be.
Oh well. Okay, so anyway, we'll see what happens. But anyway, so that was interesting.
Yeah. The other 2 things I wanted to mention actually are in line with the activities that Renee's been talking about. Not too far off in January 14th to 18th, the Tiffany Club of New England is having their first event up in Boston, actually up in Peabody. Peabody? Someone call in and tell me which way's right.
Peabody.
And that's a 5-day conference. They have discounted hotel rooms. They're going to have vendors. They're going to have seminars. They're going to have hair, skin, makeup, therapy, all kinds of things. It looks like a really interesting conference. All 5 days is about $300 to go, plus whatever you pay to stay in a hotel or drive there. And then not too far off from that, in March, is it the 12th to 14th, I think, is the True Colors Conference up at Yukon Stores.
The Rainbow.
At Stores, right. It's being sponsored by the Rainbow Center at Yukon and several other groups. And that's another really, really interesting, fairly big conference. I think it's supposed to be the largest gathering of its kind in the country, if not the world.
Wow.
They have several thousand kids especially come there every year. But it's for people of all ages. There's several seminars every day. People put on workshops, and it's just a wonderful, open, inclusive, welcoming environment.
Cool. That is a wonderful thing. Colleges typically are good places for us to be, I think.
Yeah.
It's they tend to be sort of friendly towards us, and I think that's just probably fairly typical of centers